I used to measure mornings by sound. The kettle clicking on, the bathroom fan humming, Tina moving through the bedroom like she had done it 1,000 times before. We had a stable life. Not flashy, not fragile, just built well. That mattered to me. I work in forensic science. Most people hear that and picture blood, fingerprints, tape, and bright lights. That is not really it. My work is quieter than that. I look at what people miss. I notice what does not match. A timeline, a transfer, a texture, a story that sounds right until one detail leans the wrong way. That morning, nothing looked wrong. That was the problem. Everything looked practiced. Tina kissed my cheek, grabbed her water bottle, checked her reflection in the microwave door, asked if I wanted eggs, asked if I would be late, asked if I could pick up dog food on the way home. Ordinary things, that is how betrayal starts. Not with a siren, not with lipstick, not with some stranger walking out your front door. It starts when ordinary things get a little too smooth. She was wearing black leggings, a gray zip hoodie, and those white sneakers she only wore when she wanted to look casual on purpose. I might stop by Melanie's later, she said. I nodded. Melanie was our neighbor. 2 houses down. Divorced, friendly, always outside 5 seconds too long when Tina got home. At the time, that detail meant nothing. Or maybe it did. Maybe my mind had already started working, and I just had not given it permission yet. Tina picked up her keys, then stopped, turned back, walked to the counter, took her phone, checked something, smiled at it, not a big smile, not even a happy one. A private one. Then she looked up and saw me watching. Workout group stuff, she said. Too fast, too easy, too ready. That was the first shift. Not proof, not even suspicion. Just a slight movement inside the pattern. Something small sliding out of place. I stood there with my coffee cooling in my hand and felt that quiet instinct I have learned not to ignore. It is the same feeling I get in the lab when a report looks clean, but clean in a way that feels arranged. Not natural, not accidental. Arranged. I went to the sink, rinsed my mug, looked out the window. Melanie's porch was empty. The street was still wet from rain the night before. Low Catskills fog hung between the trees, cold enough to make every sound carry farther. Then I saw it. Not Tina, not Melanie. Her reflection, in the black glass of the microwave door. She had stepped back inside without me hearing her. Her phone was in her hand. The screen was lit. One name across the top. Just one, Ryan. No heart, no emoji, no last name. Just Ryan. Then she turned the phone face down and smiled at me like nothing at all had happened. That was the moment the morning changed. Not because I had proof, because I had a name. And once a name appears, a man like me does not stop at the name. I did not confront her. Not that day. People think restraint comes from weakness. It does not. Sometimes restraint is the only way to let the truth finish speaking. So I watched. Not sloppily, not obsessively, patiently. That part mattered. If you watch too hard, people feel it. If you move too soon, they adjust. Truth is easiest to catch when it still feels safe. That week, her schedule became strangely flexible. She worked as a home health aide. Her hours moved sometimes. That was normal. But the explanations got smoother. Too smooth. One client needed extra time. One family changed the visit. One stop ran late. One workout turned into a coffee. The words changed. The shape stayed the same. When she came home, she was affectionate. That mattered too. More hugs, longer kisses, more questions about my day. A hand on my shoulder while I washed dishes. Most husbands would have found that comforting. It did the opposite to me, because guilt often overpays in tenderness. On Wednesday night, I heard her laugh in the mudroom. Soft, low, intimate in a way that did not belong to a friend. By the time I came around the corner, she had ended the call. Who was that? I asked. Melanie, she said. Another easy answer. I nodded, opened the fridge, said nothing. That is another thing forensic work teaches you. The first version is rarely the full one. Sometimes it is not even for the other person. Sometimes they lie first to buy themselves time, to decide what kind of liar they need to become. The next morning, I left for work 10 minutes early. I drove past the county lot, kept going and parked 2 streets over. From there, I could see our house through the bare trees. Tina came out at her usual time. Gym bag, travel mug, phone in hand. She did not drive toward the gym. She drove the other way, toward town, toward the older side with the pharmacy, the hardware store, and the row of storefronts that always looked half open even when they were not. I followed at a distance, not because I enjoyed it, because by then the truth had earned that much of me. She parked behind a coffee place, not in front, behind. I stayed in my truck across the lot. 3 minutes later, a man came out of a black SUV. Tall, athletic, work jacket, baseball cap. He moved like somebody used to entering rooms without asking permission. Tina got out, smiled before she reached him. Not polite, not neighborly, not casual. She smiled like her body already knew what his presence meant. He kissed her, not a cautious kiss, not the first kiss of a mistake, the kiss of a thing already underway. Then they went inside. I sat there with both hands on the wheel. No shouting, no shaking, just that flat, cold feeling when the question mark becomes a period. His name was Ryan. That much I had. Now I had his face, his truck, his build, and that kiss. A lot of men would call that enough. Maybe it should have been. But enough for pain is not the same as enough for consequence. I went to work, did my shift, processed trace samples, logged chain of custody records, answered questions in a normal voice. That is one of the strangest parts of learning your marriage has been cut open. The world does not pause. Evidence still needs labeling. Lunch still comes around. Your phone still buzzes with a wife asking if you want chicken or pasta for dinner. That evening she made salmon. She asked how my day was. She laughed when the dog barked at nothing. She kissed me while carrying plates to the sink. I let her, not because I was weak, because I needed to understand scale. An affair is not just one kiss in a parking lot. It is the network built around it. Money, time, excuses, risk, access, complicity. Once I knew what I was seeing, I started mapping it. The next few days filled in fast. Ryan was not a client, not a coworker, not a trainer. He was a contractor. Local, did side renovation work. Also did snow removal in winter. And he lived one road over from Melanie. That was the first real twist. The neighbor piece. Melanie was not the affair partner. She was the bridge. Once I saw that, other things rearranged. Tina mentioning Melanie so often. Melanie waving too brightly when I was outside. Melanie once saying, "You work so much, Jack." At the time it sounded friendly. Now it sounded like measurement. I did not accuse Melanie either. Not yet. I kept tracing. By the second week, I knew the affair was not new. It had weight, routine, confidence. Tina met Ryan at least twice a week. Sometimes at coffee, sometimes in his truck, twice at a house. Melanie was supposedly watching for her sister outside town. That one took longer to confirm. But when I did, it changed the temperature inside me. Because secrecy is one level of betrayal. Borrowed cover from your neighbor is another. Then I found the money. That was the middle blow. The one that makes pain become strategy. We had a joint account for household expenses. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, dog food, normal married life. Tina handled a lot of the day-to-day. That never bothered me. I trusted her. 12 years makes trust feel less like a decision and more like floorboards. You stop testing them. Then one night, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and started pulling 3 months of charges. At first it looked ordinary. Target, pharmacy, gas, groceries. Then the repeats appeared. Same boutique gymwear shop. Same restaurant 40 minutes away. Same gas station near Ryan's route. Same cash withdrawals. Small enough not to trigger alarm. Frequent enough to form intent. Then hotel-adjacent charges. Not room charges. Day spa package charges attached to a resort people in the Catskills use when they want to pretend they live a glossier life than they do. 2 charges, then 3, then a 4th. My stomach went cold. Because by then, I knew what that meant. Not just sex. Shared fantasy. Shared spending. Shared time paid for with marital money. I kept going. Then I saw a hardware purchase I did not recognize. Then another, then a home decor store. Then grocery purchases made near Ryan's road. Not ours, his. It took me 2 more days to prove that part. But once I did, there was no going back. Tina had been using our household money to stock his place. Food, linens, tools, a coffee maker. Nothing huge. Nothing cinematic. Just the slow, ugly drip of my labor crossing into another man's kitchen. That hurt worse than the kiss. Because sex is betrayal. But provision is something else. A wife taking marital money and carrying comfort into another man's house does something different to a man's spine. It changes his posture. I sat in my truck outside the river, overlooked the night I confirmed it. No music, no phone call, no dramatic breakdown. I just stared through the windshield at black water and bare branches, and felt something in me go from wounded to disciplined. There is a moment when grief stops asking why. That is when it becomes useful. When I got home, Tina was on the couch under a blanket. The dog asleep against her leg. Television low. Warm lamplight. She looked up and smiled. "You're late," she said. "Long day," I said. She patted the cushion beside her. Normal wife gesture. Familiar. Poisonous. I sat down anyway. She leaned against me. I could smell her shampoo, feel the warmth of her shoulder. And all I could think was this. You were in his house. Maybe this afternoon. Maybe yesterday. Maybe using my money to make it feel more like home. That was the first night I slept facing away from her. She noticed. Of course she noticed. But she said nothing. People in affairs are often very brave inside the lie, and very timid when the truth begins to breathe nearby. 3 days later, she tested me. That is what it was. A test. She stood in the kitchen packing her lunch. "I may help Melanie with something later," she said. I looked up from my coffee. "What kind of thing?" I asked. "She needs help moving some stuff around at her sister's place," she said. There it was. Cover story, preemptive. Confident. Already built. I nodded. "Okay," I said. Then I held her eyes 1 second longer than usual. Not enough to accuse. Enough to make her wonder if something had shifted. That night she came home too bright. Too chatty, too affectionate. She made stew. Asked about my mother. Ran her fingers through my hair while I sat at the table. That was when I knew she was deep in it. Because women who are merely drifting still leave room for discomfort. Women protecting a full affair tend to perform peace. I met with a lawyer the next week. Kingston. Older woman, sharp eyes, no wasted language. I liked her immediately. I told her I wanted options. Not noise, not vengeance. Options. She asked if children were involved. No, that made things cleaner. She asked if I wanted to confront first. No, I said. I want my footing first. She nodded. Good, she said. Then she walked me through separation, asset protection, documentation, and financial recovery. Especially financial recovery. Marital money used to support the affair matters, she said. Track everything. I told her I had already started. That pleased her. Good, she said. Stay calm. Calm, people say that like it is soft. It is not. Calm is often the most expensive form of self-control a person can afford. From there, I got practical. I moved part of my direct deposit to a new account. Changed passwords. Copied statements. Saved screenshots. Printed charge histories. Made a timeline. Dates. Locations. Amounts, Melanie's role, Ryan's truck. The coffee shop. The cover house, every piece in its place. And all the while, Tina kept playing wife. She folded my laundry. Asked if I wanted pie at her mother's, gathering the next Sunday. Mentioned maybe taking a weekend trip when things calmed down. Things, that word. So innocent. So useless. Things never calm down inside betrayal. They only clarify. The family gathering was at her mother's place. Big old house. Too many casserole dishes. Warm kitchen. Boots by the door. Aunts talking over each other. Cousins in the den. Her brother outside arguing about firewood. That kind of day. Crowded enough to hide a lot. Public enough to make a sentence matter. I had not planned every detail yet. Only the shape. I knew I was done. I knew I wanted one clean line. No screaming, no brawl, no crying speech. Just a sentence that would strip the affair of romance in front of the people whose opinion she actually feared. What I did not know until that day was that Ryan would be there too. Not as a guest, as help. He was unloading folding chairs from a trailer when we pulled up. Tina saw him the same second I did. Her whole body changed. Small change, but I saw it. Shoulders tightening, breath catching, then recovering. Her mother came out waving a wooden spoon. Ryan was kind enough to help with setup, she called. Of course he was. That is how these things always reveal their true ugliness. Not in secret rooms, in ordinary daylight. So there he was, the man my wife could not say no to. Standing in front of her mother's house with my borrowed money, probably already spent on his groceries, his gas, and his comforts. And there was Tina, playing daughter, playing wife, playing helper, all while trying not to look at him too directly. The affair had rotted all the way into family air. That made the next part very easy for me. I said hello to everyone, carried in a pie, took my coat off, shook Ryan's hand when he stepped close enough. His grip was firm, performative. His eyes gave me that familiar male look, the one that asks without words, "What do you know?" I gave him nothing. That unsettled him more than anger would have. Inside, the house was full of heat and chatter. Tina moved between rooms with that same skilled warmth she used at home. Touching shoulders, checking dishes, laughing on cue. If you had walked in cold, you would have called us solid. That is what appearance does. It rents confidence to strangers. I stayed near the kitchen for most of the afternoon. Listened, watched, waited. Once, I caught Melanie at the back counter talking quietly to Tina. Both of them went still when I stepped in. Melanie smiled too wide. "Need more ice?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm good." She looked away first. Good. Later, I saw Tina take her phone into the mudroom. Ryan stepped out to the back porch less than 30 seconds later. That was enough. Not because I needed more proof. Because I had timing. Timing is a kind of evidence too. I followed a minute later. The cold hit hard. Ryan was near the rail. Tina was 2 steps away. Not touching, not stupid, just close enough to look wrong to anyone who understood proximity. They both turned when the screen door opened. Tina's face changed first. Ryan's second. I looked at both of them. Then I looked past them at the yard. Gray trees, patchy snow. Smoke from a barrel fire down by the driveway. Then I said very calmly, the line I had carried there. "Tina, stop spending my money to make his house feel like yours." That was it. One sentence, not loud, not theatrical. But sound carries differently when truth finally has weight. The back porch went silent. Behind me, I heard the screen door open again. Then another. Family members do not need much to sense when something real has entered the air. Tina went white. Ryan looked at her first. Not me. That told me everything. Because guilty men always check the weaker link. "Jack," Tina whispered. "Please." I kept my voice even. "You bought his groceries. You paid for his weekends. You used our account to stock another man's kitchen." I looked at Ryan then. "And you stood in my mother-in-law's driveway like that made you useful." He opened his mouth. "No," I said. And he stopped. That was the streetwise part, I guess. Not violence, not threats, knowing exactly when to leave a man without language. Tina stepped toward me. "Please, not here," she said. I almost smiled. "Here is exactly right," I said. Behind us, her mother had come to the doorway. Her brother too. Melanie farther back, suddenly very interested in the floor. Nobody said a word. So I gave them one. I looked at Tina. Not cruelly, clearly. You gave a neighbor cover, gave him my money, and gave that man the part of you I was still protecting. Then I stepped aside. Not backward, aside, like I was clearing the hallway for consequences to enter. Ryan tried again. "This is between you two," he said. I looked at him. "No," I said. "It stopped being private when you started eating on my dime." That landed hard, because men like him always imagine they are stealing passion. They hate being reduced to expense. Tina started crying then. Not elegantly, not quietly, real crying, panicked, humiliated, too late. Her mother said her name. Her brother cursed. Melanie disappeared from the doorway entirely. Ryan looked like he wanted to shrink and fight at the same time. He chose neither. Smartest thing he did all year. I turned and walked inside. That was the end of the public part. I did not stay for dessert. I did not explain. I did not defend myself to cousins, aunts, or anybody else who wanted detail. A clean sentence does more damage than a messy speech. Tina came after me to the front yard, boots slipping on wet gravel. "Jack, please listen to me," she said. I opened the driver's door. "I've listened for months," I said. "It wasn't," she started. I turned and looked at her. That shut it down, because at some point, a liar runs out of usable versions. She stood there crying in the cold, green coat half open, hair blown across her face, and for 1 second I saw the whole thing plainly. Not a villain, not a monster. A woman who wanted appetite, attention, and a second self more than she wanted the ordinary dignity of her own life. That does not excuse anything. But clarity rarely arrives as pure hatred. Sometimes it arrives as contempt with a little grief mixed in. "I'm done," I said. Then I got in the truck and left. The next weeks were quiet. Quieter than people expect after something public. No screaming phone calls. No dramatic night visits. No broken dishes. Just paperwork. Boundaries. Silence. My lawyer moved quickly. So did I. Separation filing. Financial accounting. Recovery requests for marital funds used during the affair. Limited contact. Email only except for necessary logistics. The house went on the table as an eventual decision. For the first time since Ryan's name crossed that microwave reflection, my life began to feel as if it belonged to me again. Tina tried at first. Long emails, tearful voicemails I did not return. One message that simply said, "I ruined everything." That one was true, but truth after impact does not unbreak glass. Melanie sent one message too. "I'm sorry for my part. I never answered." Neighbors do not always need a dramatic punishment. Sometimes being left outside your life is enough. Ryan never contacted me. Smart again. He vanished the way men like that vanish. Fast, as if the affair only existed while someone else was willing to maintain the weather around it. Later, I heard through town talk that Tina kept seeing him for a while. That did not surprise me. She was the kind of woman who, once she stepped over a line, had trouble stepping back without someone else pulling her. That was her weakness. Not lust, not even love. Submission to momentum. Then I heard he dropped her. Also not surprising. Affairs built on appetite usually die the minute they are forced to survive daylight. I moved into a rental house near the edge of town. Small wood stove, back porch facing trees. The first few nights were strange. Not because of loneliness. Because of the absence of vigilance. No need to track tone. No need to read pauses. No need to wonder why a phone turned over when I entered the room. Silence changed shape. It stopped being suspense. It became rest. I still worked. Still logged evidence. Still stood under fluorescent lights and handled material that had once belonged to other people's worst days. But I noticed something. My hands were steadier. My jaw less tight. I laughed once with a coworker and heard it ring out like it belonged to someone returning from a long winter. That is the thing about removing rot. At first it looks like loss. Later it looks like breathing. Tina and I saw each other twice in person during the formal process. Once with lawyers. Once to exchange some remaining items. The second time, she stood in the driveway holding a box with my old field jacket folded on top. She looked thinner, tired, less arranged. There was no Ryan. No Melanie, no orbit of heat around her anymore. Just a woman standing in afternoon light, with the plain cost of her own decisions finally visible. "Jack, for what it's worth, I know you did not deserve it," she said. I took the box. "No," I said. "I didn't." She started to cry. I did not comfort her. That part of my life was over. Forgiveness is a private decision. Re-entry is not. She had lost both. By late spring, the trees filled in. The river roads opened up. Mud dried. Tourist cars came back. I started taking long drives after work. No destination, just road, windshield light, coffee in the holder. A man alone without being abandoned. That distinction mattered. People confuse exile with freedom sometimes. They are not the same. Exile is when someone else's choice throws you out. Freedom is when you stop standing outside your own door asking to be let back in. One evening, I parked by an overlook and watched the valley go blue with dusk. No calls, no messages, no one waiting to explain away the shape of a day. I thought about Tina, not with longing, not even with anger. More like you think about a house you once lived in after you know you will never go back. You remember the hallway, the sound of the stairs, where the light landed in the kitchen. But you also remember the leak in the wall, the smell beneath the paint, and the way something hidden had been softening the frame for a long time. That was our marriage at the end. Not worthless, not fake, but damaged in a way that honest people do not pretend can be cured by wishing harder. By summer, the legal end was nearly complete. Accounts separated, property questions settled, recovery terms accepted. Not everything returned. That was never possible. Some losses do not come back in numbers. But enough did. Enough for order. Enough for dignity. That mattered more than revenge. Real revenge is not loud. It is not destruction. It is not making a scene so big it poisons you too. Real revenge is refusing to remain available to people who mistook your steadiness for weakness. I never called Ryan. Never threatened him. Never chased explanation through his mouth. I did not need him. Men like that tell on themselves by what they take, how cheaply they take it, and how fast they leave once the taking gets expensive. And Tina, I stopped hating her before the paperwork finished. That surprised me. I thought hate would stay longer. It did not. Once the deception ended, there was less to feed it. What remained was simpler. She had chosen badly, repeatedly, and I had chosen, finally, not to stay available for the aftershock. That decision gave me back something I had not realized I was losing the whole time. My self-respect. Not the loud version, not ego. The quiet kind. The kind that lets a man sit alone with coffee and a silent phone and still feel like he is in good company. Sometimes that is the whole win. Now when morning comes, I still measure it by sound. The kettle clicking on, the porch boards settling, the wind moving through the trees behind the house. Simple things, honest things, no private smile crossing a phone screen, no cover story waiting by the door, no neighbor helping betrayal dress itself as routine. Just morning, just breath, just the life that stayed standing after the lie finally burned off. And that life is enough. More than enough.